The human was going to die. That much was obvious to anyone with functioning optical sensors. 3 Korat snow lions, each weighing roughly 600 pounds of crystallized muscle and fury, circled the lone figure in the frozen wasteland. The temperature read -47 degrees Celsius. The human wore nothing but torn fabric and determination. And my daughter was smiling. "Papa Vorthak, look how he moves." Sofra giggled, her 4 eyes sparkling with delight as she pressed her small blue face against the observation deck's reinforced glass. "He is like the wind dancers from the old stories." I wanted to tell her to look away, to spare her young mind from witnessing what would surely be a massacre. But something about the human's stance made me pause. He stood there, bleeding from a dozen cuts, surrounded by predators that could tear apart our strongest warriors, and he was laughing. The largest snow lion lunged first. What happened next defied every tactical simulation our military computers had ever run. The human didn't dodge backward like any sensible being would. Instead, he stepped forward, grabbed the lion's massive jaws with his bare hands, and used the creature's own momentum to spin it into the second attacker. Both beasts crashed into the ice with a sound like thunder. "Impossible," I whispered, my mandibles clicking nervously. The third lion roared, a sound that made our ship's hull vibrate. The human turned toward it, wiped blood from his nose with the back of his hand, and did something that made my thermal sensors malfunction. He smiled back. "Now that," he called out to the beast, his voice carrying clearly across the frozen plain, "that was just rude." Zephyra burst into delighted laughter. "Papa, he talks to them like they are friends having a disagreement." The snow lion charged. This time the human was ready. He rolled to the side at the last possible moment, came up behind the creature, and somehow managed to wrap his arms around its neck. What followed was the most brutal display of interspecies combat I had ever witnessed. They rolled across the ice, a tangle of claws and flesh and determination. Blood painted the white ground red. Most of it was human. "Sir," Lieutenant Grex's voice crackled through the comm. "Should we intervene? Our scans show critical damage to his circulatory system." I stared at the scene below. The human had somehow gained the upper hand, literally. He was on top of the snow lion now, his hands locked around its throat, his legs wrapped around its torso. The creature thrashed wildly, trying to shake him loose. "Negative," I heard myself say. "We observe only, but Commander, he is clearly outmatched." "Basic probability suggests—" "Basic probability," I interrupted, "said these creatures couldn't survive in our sectors. Basic probability said their ships couldn't function without proper shielding. Basic probability has been wrong about humans before." The snow lion went limp. The human held on for another 10 seconds, then slowly released his grip and staggered to his feet. 2 lions down, 1 remaining. The last snow lion was the smartest of the pack. It had been watching, learning. Now it approached carefully, low to the ground, yellow eyes fixed on its wounded prey. The human swayed on his feet, leaving dark drops in the snow with every step. "This is it," Grex murmured. "He cannot possibly." The human began to sing. Not a battle cry or war chant. A soft, melodic tune that drifted across the frozen landscape like a lullaby. The snow lion paused, confused. Even we aboard the ship found ourselves listening. "What is he doing?" Zephyra asked, her voice filled with wonder. The lion took another step forward. The human kept singing, his voice growing stronger despite his obvious injuries. And then, just as the creature prepared to pounce, the human did something that made my blood freeze in my veins. He dropped to one knee and extended his hand. "No," I breathed. "You magnificent, insane fool." The snow lion stopped. For a heartbeat that lasted an eternity, predator and prey stared at each other. The human continued his strange song, blood running down his arm, hand steady as a mountain. The lion moved, but not to attack. It stepped forward, cautiously, until its massive head was inches from the human's outstretched palm. The singing stopped. Silence blanketed the frozen world. The human's hand made contact with the lion's snout. "By the 7 moons," Grex whispered. He is petting it." Zephyra clapped her hands together. I told you, Papa. I told you he was special. The snow lion closed its eyes and leaned into the touch. For a moment that defied every law of nature I knew. Human and apex predator shared a connection that transcended species. The human's other hand came up to scratch behind the creature's ears. Good boy, the human said softly. Good boy. Then he collapsed. The snow lion caught him before he hit the ground, gently lowering the unconscious human onto the ice. It stood guard over the fallen figure, amber eyes scanning the horizon for threats. Medical team, now. I barked into the comm, full atmospheric protection and emergency stabilization gear. Sir, what about the lion? Grex asked. I watched as the massive predator curled its body around the human, sharing its warmth. Leave it alone. I have a feeling they understand each other better than we understand either of them. As our medical team prepared for deployment, I found myself thinking about the report I would have to file. How do you explain to High Command that a single human, armed with nothing but determination and an incomprehensible capacity for connection, had just redefined everything we thought we knew about survival? Papa's Zephyra tugged at my arm. Why are you so surprised? Humans always do impossible things. That is what makes them humans. Out of the mouths of younglings. Sometimes wisdom comes in the smallest packages. How long has he been down there? I asked Lieutenant Grex. 17 hours, sir. Ever since his transport crashed in the storm. 17 hours alone in conditions that would kill most species within minutes. Fighting for survival against odds that would make our finest warriors weep. And he had not just survived. He had somehow turned the most dangerous predator on this continent into an ally. Sir, the medical officer's voice came through the comm. We have him. But there is something you should know. Report. He is asking about the lion. Even unconscious, he keeps saying, don't hurt the lion. We had to sedate it to get close enough for extraction. I looked at Zephyra, who was still pressed against the glass, watching as our teams carefully loaded both human and snow lion into separate transport pods. Tell me, little one, I said, what do you think will happen next? She turned to me with those bright, innocent eyes that saw things adults missed. The human will wake up and ask if his new friend is okay. Then he will probably do something else impossible. And why do you think that? Her smile could have powered our ship's engines. Because, Papa, that is what humans do. They turn enemies into friends and make the impossible look like Tuesday afternoon. The transport pods sealed shut, beginning their journey back to our medical bay. Through the viewports, I could see the snow lion in one pod, the human in the other, even sedated, even separated by reinforced barriers. They seemed somehow connected. Sir, Grex said quietly, permission to speak freely. Granted. I have been analyzing the combat footage, the human's movements, his tactical decisions, even his choice to approach the final lion. None of it follows standard survival protocols. It is almost as if he was following an entirely different set of rules. What kind of rules? That is just it, sir. I cannot identify them. Our computers cannot process his logic patterns. It is like trying to solve an equation where half the variables exist in dimensions we cannot perceive. I nodded slowly. This was not the first time we had encountered this phenomenon. Humans had a talent for operating outside the boundaries of conventional wisdom. They called it thinking outside the box. We called it controlled insanity. Status report on the crash site investigation? I asked. Completed, sir. The transport suffered total engine failure due to magnetic interference from the storm. No survivors were expected. Expected being the key word. Yes, sir. The probability of survival was calculated at 0.003%. And yet here we are, watching our medical team treat a human who not only survived but somehow befriended the local apex predators. Zephyra giggled. Silly computers. They do not understand that humans do not care about probability. She was right, of course. In all our encounters with humans we had learned one consistent truth. They were magnificently, terrifyingly unpredictable. They would charge into battles they could not win, make alliances with species that wanted to eat them, and somehow turn disaster into triumph through nothing but sheer stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Papa, will we see him again? What do you mean? The human, will he come back to play with the snow lions? I looked out at the frozen landscape where, just hours ago, one man had redefined the meaning of survival. Knowing humans, little one, I suspect this is just the beginning. The medical bay chimed, signaling the arrival of our unusual patients. As we made our way down to meet them, I found myself wondering what impossible thing the human would do next, because Zephyra was right about one thing. With humans, there was always a next time, and somehow that thought was both terrifying and oddly comforting. After all, in a universe full of wonders and horrors, it was strangely reassuring to know that somewhere out there, a species existed that looked at the impossible and said challenge accepted. The doors to the medical bay slid open, revealing organized chaos. Medical technicians bustled around two containment units, one housing an unconscious human covered in bandages, the other containing a very awake and very agitated snow lion. "Report," I called out to Dr. Helios, our chief medical officer. "The human is stable but critical," she replied, her four arms working quickly over the diagnostic displays. "Multiple lacerations, severe hypothermia, blood loss that should have been fatal 3 hours ago. By all medical logic, he should be dead, but he is not. No, sir. His cellular regeneration rate is operating at approximately 300% of normal human parameters. It is as if his body refuses to accept fatal damage." I approached the human's containment unit. Even unconscious, even pale from blood loss. There was something about his face that suggested he was merely resting between rounds. His hands, I noticed, bore the scars of someone who had fought his way through life. "What about our furry friend?" Dr. Helios gestured to the snow lion's containment unit. "Physically unharmed, but displaying unprecedented behavioral patterns. It keeps trying to break out, and every time it does, it moves toward the human's unit. Fascinating. Sir, there is more. We ran genetic analysis on both subjects. The results are peculiar." Define peculiar. The snow lion's brain chemistry has been altered. Specifically, the regions associated with pack bonding and protective instincts. It appears to have imprinted on the human. Zephyra pressed her nose against the snow lion's containment unit. The massive creature immediately stopped its restless pacing and came to her side of the barrier, its eyes gentle. "See, Papa? He is not angry. He is worried." Worried about what? His friend, of course. As if responding to her words, the human stirred. His eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then sharpening as awareness returned. The first word out of his mouth was predictable. "Lion." Dr. Helios moved to his side. "You need to remain still. You have suffered severe trauma." The human tried to sit up, winced, and settled for turning his head toward the snow lion's containment unit. When he saw the creature was safe, his entire body relaxed. "Is he hurt?" the human asked. "No," I replied, stepping into his field of view. "He appears to be concerned about you." The human smiled, and for a moment I understood why my daughter found these creatures so fascinating. Even injured, even surrounded by alien technology and unfamiliar faces, he radiated a warmth that seemed to defy the cold vacuum of space. "Good," he said. "He is a good boy, just scared and hungry." "Scared?" Dr. Helios checked her readings. "Sir, that creature nearly killed you." "No," the human shook his head slowly. "He was protecting his territory. I was the intruder. We just needed to establish some mutual respect by fighting to the death. By proving I was not a threat. Sometimes the only way to show you are not an enemy is to demonstrate you could be, but choose not to." I felt my mandibles click in confusion. "That makes no logical sense. Logic is overrated," the human replied with a grin that somehow made the statement sound perfectly reasonable. "Sometimes you have to speak in a language the other guy understands. With snow lions, that language happens to be violence followed by gentleness." Zephyra clapped her hands together. "I told you he was smart, Papa." The human noticed her for the first time, and his expression softened even further. "Well, hello there, little one. What is your name?" "Zephyra. What is yours?" "Marcus," he said, then winced as he tried to shift position. "Marcus Chen. I mean Marcus. Are you going to do more impossible things? Marcus Stone?" Marcus laughed. A sound that somehow made the sterile medical bay feel warmer. "Probably. I seem to have a talent for finding trouble. That, I muttered, is an understatement. As if summoned by the sound of Marcus's voice, the snow lion began a low, rumbling vocalization. Not a growl or roar, but something almost like a purr. He wants to make sure you are okay, Zephyra translated, though how she could possibly know that was beyond my understanding. Can I see him? Marcus asked. Just for a moment? Dr. Helios began to protest. But I held up a hand. Lower the barriers. Minimal separation only. Sir, I must advise against. Noted and overruled. The containment barriers shifted, leaving only a transparent barrier between human and snow lion. Immediately, both creatures moved toward each other. Marcus pressed his palm against the barrier, and the snow lion responded by touching its nose to the same spot. Unbelievable, Dr. Helios whispered. His stress indicators just dropped to normal levels. What about the lion? I asked. Also showing reduced stress markers. It is as if they are communicating through the barrier. Marcus began speaking softly to the creature. Words too quiet for our universal translators to pick up. The snow lion's purring grew louder, its eyes never leaving the human's face. Papa, Zephyra whispered, tugging at my arm again. You think all humans are like this? I thought about the question seriously. In our limited encounters with humans, we had seen warriors who fought impossible odds, diplomats who negotiated peace from the brink of war, and scientists who solved problems by ignoring the rules that said they could not be solved. I think, I said carefully, that humans have a talent for being exactly what the situation requires, even when that seems impossible. Even when it is impossible, Marcus added, apparently having overheard. Especially then. The snow lion suddenly raised its head, ears perked. A moment later, our proximity alarms began chiming. Report, I called out. Lieutenant Grex's voice came through the comm. Sir, we have incoming ships. 3 vessels, unknown configuration. Approaching fast. Marcus was already struggling to sit up. What kind of ships? Why does it matter? I asked. His expression had gone from peaceful to deadly serious in the span of a heartbeat. Because if they are who I think they are, you are about to find out why humans are really good at impossible things. The snow lion's purring had changed to a low growl, its predator instincts responding to some threat we could not yet perceive. Papa, Zephyr said quietly, I think the impossible thing is about to happen again. Outside our ship, 3 dark shapes emerged from the planet's upper atmosphere, moving with the purposeful grace of hunters closing in on their prey. The ships were black as the void between stars, and they moved wrong. Not wrong in a mechanical sense. Wrong in the way that predators moved when they had already decided their prey was dead. I had seen enough combat to recognize the difference between patrol ships and hunters. These were hunters. Identification code, sir? Lieutenant Grex asked, his voice tight with tension. None transmitted, came the reply from our communications officer. They are running silent on all frequencies. Marcus was fighting to stand up, his face pale but determined. You need to get me to your weapons systems. Now, Dr. Helios pushed him back down. You are in no condition to— Listen to me, Marcus interrupted, his voice carrying a tone of authority that made even my seasoned crew take notice. Those ships belong to the Crimson Fleet, pirates, slavers, and worse. They followed my crash beacon. Impossible, I said. We monitored all transmissions. Your beacon was destroyed in the crash. Marcus gave me a look that was equal parts pity and dark amusement. You monitored the beacon you could detect. The Crimson Fleet plants trackers in their targets that broadcast on frequencies most species cannot even perceive. The snow lion in the containment unit was now pacing frantically, its earlier calm replaced by predatory alertness. Even through the barriers, I could hear its breathing change to the rapid, shallow pattern of a creature preparing for battle. He knows, Zephyra whispered, watching the great cat. He can smell their evil. Ships do not have scent, I began, then stopped. With humans involved, normal logic had a tendency to abandon ship entirely. Sir, Rex's voice came through the comm. Urgent now. The lead vessel is hailing us. On screen, the face that appeared on our main display made my mandibles click involuntarily. The creature was humanoid. but wrong in all the subtle ways that marked it as something that had chosen to abandon whatever decency it might have once possessed. Scars covered half its face, and where one eye should have been a mechanical replacement glowed red. "Greetings, alien vessel," the creature said, its voice like grinding metal. "I am Captain Vex of the Crimson Fleet. You have something that belongs to us." I glanced at Marcus, who was now sitting up despite Dr. Helios's protests. His expression had gone completely flat, the warmth I had witnessed earlier replaced by something cold and calculating. "We have nothing that belongs to you," I replied to the screen. Captain Vex smiled, revealing teeth that had been filed to points. "Oh, but you do. You see, we have been tracking one Marcus Stone, former Alliance operative, current pain in our collective rear end. Our sensors indicate he is aboard your vessel. Even if that were true, he is under our protection." "Protection?" The pirate laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "From 3 ships of the Crimson Fleet. How delightfully naive." Marcus stood up, pushing past Dr. Helios with surprising strength for someone who should have been unconscious. "Vex, you ugly son of a diseased Altarian swamp rat. Still compensating for your complete lack of tactical skill with bigger ships?" The pirate's face contorted with rage. "Marcus Stone, do you have any idea how much trouble you have caused us?" "Not nearly enough, apparently, since you are still breathing." I found myself impressed despite the situation. Here was a human, injured and outnumbered, casually insulting someone who commanded enough firepower to reduce our ship to component atoms. Either Marcus was insane, or he had a plan. Given what I had already witnessed, I was betting on the plan. "Last chance, aliens," Vex snarled. "Hand over Stone, and we might let you live long enough to regret meeting us." I looked at Marcus, who gave me an almost imperceptible shake of his head. Then I looked at Zephyra, whose 4 eyes blazed with the righteous anger that only children could summon. "Counter-proposal," I said to the screen. "Leave our space immediately, and we might let you live long enough to regret threatening us." Vex's laughter cut off abruptly. "So be it. You have 10 minutes to prepare for boarding. Try to put up a good fight. It makes the victory more satisfying." The screen went dark. "Well," Marcus said cheerfully, "that could have gone better." "Sir," Grex's voice was strained, "tactical analysis shows their ships outgun us by a factor of 12 to 1. "Noted," I replied. "Marcus, I do not suppose you have any suggestions?" "As a matter of fact, I do." Marcus was already moving toward the medical bay's exit, somehow managing to look steady despite his injuries. "But first I need my friend here." He gestured to the Snow Lion's containment unit. "You want to release a 600-pound predator during a combat situation. I want to release a 600-pound ally during a combat situation. There is a difference." Dr. Helios stepped between Marcus and the containment controls. "Absolutely not. That creature could kill everyone in this room." "Only if I asked him to," Marcus replied. Then did something that made my brain hurt. He began making the same soft sounds he had used to calm the snow lion on the planet's surface. The effect was immediate. The great cat moved to the barrier closest to Marcus and touched its nose to the transparent wall. Its breathing calmed, and the aggressive pacing stopped. "See?" Marcus said. "He understands the situation." "That is impossible," Dr. Helios protested. "Animal intelligence does not extend to comprehending complex tactical scenarios." Zephyra tugged at my arm. "Papa, the snow lion is not just an animal anymore. The human changed him." "Changed him how?" "With friendship. Humans can do that. They can make anyone better just by believing in them." I stared at my daughter, then at Marcus, who was somehow communicating with the apex predator through a series of clicks and gestures. The snow lion was responding with its own vocalizations, and for a moment that defied all logic. It looked like they were having a conversation. "Time estimate until boarding?" I asked. 8 minutes, sir," came the reply. Marcus turned to me with that unsettling human smile. "Perfect. That gives us just enough time to implement Operation Absolute Insanity." "Operation? What?" "It is a technical term. It means we do something so completely unexpected that the enemy's tactical computers suffer what humans call a logic error. The ship shuddered as the Crimson Fleet vessels moved into attack formation. Through the viewports, I could see their boarding pods launching. "What do you need?" I asked. "First, release my friend here. Second, I need access to your environmental controls. Third, do you have any of those magnetic grappling cables in your cargo bay?" "Yes, but what?" "No time to explain, just trust me." I looked at Zephyra, who nodded enthusiastically. "Do it, Papa. Humans always have good ideas, even when they sound crazy. Especially when they sound crazy," Marcus added. Against every instinct I possessed, I authorized the release of the Snow Lion's containment field. The great cat bounded out immediately, but instead of attacking anyone, it went straight to Marcus and began what could only be described as a reunion between old friends. "Good boy," Marcus said, scratching behind the lion's ears. "Ready for another fight?" The Snow Lion's response was a rumbling growl that somehow managed to sound eager. "Dr. Helios," I called out, "evacuate all non-essential personnel from this section. Rix, give Marcus access to environmental and cargo controls." "Sir, this is highly irregular. So is everything else about this situation. Do it." The next few minutes were a blur of activity that made no sense individually, but somehow formed a pattern I was beginning to recognize as uniquely human. Marcus accessed our environmental systems and began making modifications that our computers insisted were impossible. He rerouted atmospheric processors, adjusted artificial gravity in specific sections, and did something to our magnetic containment fields that made our chief engineer weep. "Boarding pods making contact in 30 seconds, Grex reported. "Perfect timing," Marcus said. He was now wearing an emergency environment suit, and somehow the Snow Lion was also fitted with breathing apparatus. "Remember, no matter what happens, do not open any internal blast doors until I give the all clear. What exactly are you planning?" I demanded. Marcus grinned, and for the first time I understood why the Crimson Fleet might consider him a threat. "I am going to show them why humans and Snow Lions make excellent partners." The first explosion echoed through our hall as the boarding pods breached our outer defenses. Emergency lights bathed everything in red, and the familiar sounds of forced entry echoed through the corridors. "They are in sections 7 through 12, Lieutenant Grex reported. 47 hostiles, fully armed." "Acknowledged," Marcus replied, checking the seal on his environment suit. "Initiating environmental changes in 3, 2, 1. Our ship's atmosphere began venting from the compromised sections. Not completely, but enough to drop the temperature by 60 degrees and reduce oxygen levels to the point where most species would struggle to function effectively. That will slow them down," Marcus said with satisfaction. "But here comes the fun part." He activated the magnetic grappling cables, but not in any way they were designed to be used. Instead of deploying them outward, he had somehow configured them to create a web of magnetic fields throughout the affected sections. "What is that supposed to accomplish?" I asked. "Watch and learn." The first group of Crimson Fleet boarders rounded a corner into one of the modified sections. What happened next was like watching physics have a nervous breakdown. Their magnetic weapons and equipment began behaving erratically, pulled in different directions by the conflicting magnetic fields. Their formation collapsed as they struggled to maintain control of their gear. And that was when Marcus and the Snow Lion struck. They moved through the environmental chaos like they had been born for it. Marcus somehow used the magnetic fields to swing from point to point, while the Snow Lion's natural agility allowed it to navigate the altered gravity with ease. The boarders, already disoriented by the environmental changes, found themselves facing opponents who moved like they belonged in the hostile conditions. "Incredible," Dr. Helios whispered, watching the tactical display. He turned our own ship into a weapon. The Snow Lion took down 3 pirates before they even realized it was there. Marcus disabled 4 more with a combination of improvised weapons and environmental advantages that should not have been possible. The remaining boarders began to retreat, but Marcus had anticipated that too. "Sealing emergency bulkheads in sections 9 and 11, he reported calmly. "Routing auxiliary power to magnetic field generators." The retreating pirates found themselves trapped in a maze of corridors where up and down were suggestions rather than constants, and where their own equipment worked against them. "Sir," Captain Vex's voice came through our communications. No longer confident. "What are you doing to my men?" "Teaching them the first rule of fighting humans," I replied, surprising myself. "Never corner them unless you are prepared for them to redefine the battlefield." Through our internal sensors, I watched Marcus and the snow lions systematically disable the boarding parties. It was not just combat. It was artistry. They moved together like they had been partners for years, each covering the other's weaknesses, each amplifying the other's strengths. "Impossible," Vex snarled. "No single human can defeat 47 trained warriors." "You are right," Marcus's voice came through the comm as he finished securing the last group of boarders. "Good thing I brought a friend." The snow lion's roar echoed through the ship, a sound of pure triumph. "All hostile boarders neutralized and secured," Marcus reported. "Ship is clear." "How?" Vex demanded. "How did one man—" "That," I interrupted, "is the wrong question. The right question is, what makes you think he was alone?" Through our viewports I could see the remaining Crimson Fleet ships powering up their weapons. Apparently Vex had decided that if he could not capture Marcus, he would settle for destroying him. "Sir," Rex called out, "they are targeting our main systems." Massive energy buildup detected. Marcus appeared on the bridge, still wearing his environment suit, with the snow lion padding beside him. Both looked remarkably pleased with themselves. "Phase 2, Marcus announced cheerfully. "There is a Phase 2, I asked. "There is always a Phase 2 with humans," Zephyra said wisely. "That is what makes them fun." "Fun," I muttered, "is not the word I would choose." Marcus moved to our tactical station and began entering commands with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. "Tell me, Commander, how do you feel about a little creative reinterpretation of your ship's defensive capabilities? At this point, I am prepared to entertain almost any suggestion." "Good, because we are about to teach the Crimson Fleet why you should never, ever threaten someone a human considers family." The snow lion looked at Zephyra and made a sound that was unmistakably affectionate. My daughter giggled and reached out to pet the great cat, who accepted her touch with gentle dignity. "Family?" I asked. "Of course," Marcus replied, his hands flying over the controls. "You protected me when you did not have to. You gave me a chance to save my friend here. In human terms, that makes you family. And humans take family very seriously." "Sir," Grex called out, "enemy vessels are charging their main weapons. Impact in 90 seconds. Marcus smiled, and for the first time since this began I felt sorry for Captain Vex and his crews. Let them come. They are about to learn why humans do not just think outside the box. Sometimes we throw the box into a star and use the explosion to solve our problems." He activated something on the tactical display, and our ship's status indicators began showing readings that defied explanation. "What did you just do?" I asked. "I turned your cargo bay into the galaxy's most effective pirate removal system. Observe." The main screen lit up with tactical data as Marcus's improvised weapon system came online. Whatever he had done, it was about to make the next few minutes very interesting for the Crimson Fleet. "Incoming fire in 10 seconds, Rex reported. "Counter battery fire in 5 seconds, Marcus replied calmly. The snow lion positioned itself protectively in front of Zephyra, and my daughter placed her small hand on its massive head. "Papa," she said, "watch how humans say goodbye to bullies." The universe lit up with fire and impossible physics, and I finally understood why the galaxy's predators feared humanity so much. It was not because humans were the strongest or the fastest, or the most technologically advanced. It was because when humans decided to fight, they fought with everything: their minds, their hearts, their allies, and their absolute refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. Captain Vex was about to learn this lesson the hard way. What happened next violated so many laws of physics that I am certain our ship's computer suffered permanent psychological damage. Marcus had somehow transformed our cargo bay into a gravitational anomaly generator. Not theoretically, not with advanced technology we did not possess. He had done it using spare parts, magnetic containment fields, and what appeared to be sheer bloody-minded determination to rewrite reality. "Firing," Marcus announced with the casual tone of someone ordering lunch. The first pulse of energy that emerged from our ship was not visible to the naked eye, but its effects on the Crimson Fleet vessels were immediately apparent. The lead ship, Captain Vex's pride and joy, simply stopped moving. Not slowed down. As if the universe had forgotten that objects in motion were supposed to stay in motion. What in the seven hells? Vex's voice crackled through our communications before cutting off entirely. Gravitational lock, Marcus explained cheerfully. I borrowed some concepts from your artificial gravity generators and applied them externally. Those ships are now experiencing about 15 different gravitational fields pulling them in contradictory directions. Lieutenant Grex stared at his tactical display in horror. Sir, that should be impossible. The power requirements alone would be impossible, Marcus agreed, if I were generating the fields myself. But I am not. I am borrowing gravitational energy from the planet's core and redirecting it through your ship's magnetic grid. You are using an entire planet as a weapon, I asked. More like using it as a battery. The weapon is still your ship. I just gave it a really big power source. The Snow Lion padded over to where Zephyra was watching the tactical display and gently nudged her hand with its massive head. She scratched behind its ears absently, never taking her eyes off the screen. Papa, look, she whispered. The bad ships are stuck like flies in tree sap. She was right. The 3 Crimson Fleet vessels hung motionless in space, their engines firing uselessly against gravitational forces that treated their thrust like a gentle breeze against a mountain. Second pulse charging, Marcus reported. This one is going to be more interesting. More interesting how? I asked, though I was not entirely certain I wanted to know the answer. Well, the first pulse locked them in place. The second pulse is going to introduce them to the concept of selective gravitational inversion. Dr. Helios looked up from her medical station. Selective what now? Gravity that only works on certain types of matter, specifically the types of matter used in weapons and armor plating. The implications hit me like an asteroid to the face. You are going to disarm them remotely. Better than that, I am going to convince their own weapons to relocate somewhere more convenient. The second pulse fired, and what followed was the most beautiful display of applied impossibility I had ever witnessed. Across all 3 enemy ships, weapon systems began detaching themselves from their moorings and drifting peacefully away into space. Not violently, not destructively, but with the gentle grace of leaves falling from trees. Their armor plating is next, Marcus said with satisfaction. Should start in about 10 seconds. Captain Vex's face reappeared on our main screen, his expression somewhere between rage and complete bewilderment. What are you doing to my ships? Teaching them to shed, Marcus replied. Think of it as aggressive molting. As if summoned by his words, sections of hull plating began separating from the pirate vessels, floating away like metal snow. Within minutes, the 3 ships had been reduced to their basic structural frameworks, completely weaponless and largely defenseless. Impossible, Vex snarled. No single being has this kind of power. You are absolutely right, I said, finally understanding what Marcus had accomplished. No single being does. But you see, Captain, you made a fundamental error in your calculations. What error? I gestured to Marcus, who was now sitting on the deck next to the Snow Lion, while Zephyra perched on the great cat's back like it was the most natural thing in the universe. You assumed you were fighting one human. But humans do not fight alone. They make allies. They build families. They turn enemies into friends and strangers into brothers. Pretty words, Vex sneered. But you are still outnumbered. Are we? Marcus asked mildly. Computer, display current tactical situation. The main screen shifted to show a wider view of local space. What I saw there made my mandibles click in amazement. Surrounding the Crimson Fleet vessels were dozens of other ships. Some I recognized as local patrol craft, others as merchant vessels, and still others as ships I had never seen before. Where did they come from? Grex asked. I sent out a general distress call about 20 minutes ago, Marcus explained. Mentioned that pirates were threatening a ship carrying civilians, including a young child. Funny thing about this sector of space. It is full of species that do not take kindly to people who threaten children. Zephyra clapped her hands in delight. He made an army out of friendship. It gets better, Marcus added. Computer, identify responding vessels. As ship registrations appeared on the screen, I began to understand the true scope of what had happened. Among the responders were ships from 6 different species, 3 merchant consortiums, 2 independent defense forces, and what appeared to be a small fleet of bounty hunters. How? Vex demanded. How did you coordinate this? I did not coordinate anything, Marcus replied. I just told the truth, that pirates were threatening innocent people. Everything else happened naturally. People help each other, Zephyra added wisely. If that is what good people do. The snow lion rumbled its agreement, a sound that somehow conveyed both contentment and readiness for further action if needed. Captain Vex came a new voice through our communications. This is Admiral Koreth of the Hegemony Defense Force. You are surrounded and outgunned by a factor of approximately 30 to 1. Surrender immediately. This is Captain Yulin of the Free Merchant Alliance, came another voice. We have your ships targeted and are prepared to defend this sector against piracy. Bounty Hunter Guild checking in, added a third voice. We count at least 47 outstanding warrants among your crews. Prepare to be boarded. Vex's face had gone pale. This is not possible. One human cannot, I interrupted. But one human plus everyone else who believes in doing the right thing? That is a force that even the Crimson Fleet cannot stand against. Marcus stood up and dusted off his hands. Captain Vex, you have 2 choices. Surrender peacefully and face justice through proper legal channels, or resist and face the combined wrath of every decent being in this sector. Choose wisely. The pirate captain stared at the tactical display for a long moment, watching as more ships continued to arrive in response to Marcus's call for help. His vessel, stripped of weapons and armor, hung helpless in the void surrounded by overwhelming force. We surrender, he said finally, his voice bitter with defeat. Smart choice, Marcus replied. Admiral Koreth. The prisoners are all yours. The captured pirates from the boarding attempt are secured in our detention area. Acknowledged, Marcus Stone. Transport ships are en route for prisoner transfer. As the immediate crisis resolved itself, I found myself watching Marcus interact with my daughter and the snow lion. The great cat had somehow acquired a taste for having its ears scratched, and Zephyra seemed to consider this perfectly normal behavior. Marcus, I said, may I ask you something? Of course. How did you know this would work? How could you be certain that strangers would risk their lives to help people they had never met? Marcus smiled, and for a moment I saw something in his expression that explained everything I had witnessed. Because, Commander, that is what people do. Real people. Good people. When they see someone in trouble, they help. When they see injustice, they fight it. When they see a child in danger, they put themselves between that child and harm. But you could not have known. I knew, he said simply, because I have traveled this galaxy for years, and I have seen the same thing over and over again. Most beings, regardless of species, are fundamentally decent. They want to help. They want to do the right thing. Sometimes they just need someone to show them how. Zephyra looked up from where she was teaching the snow lion to play a simple game with her hands. Papa, this is why humans are special. They see the good in everyone, even when everyone cannot see it themselves. Even in snow lions that try to eat them, I asked. Especially then, Marcus laughed. Those are the ones who need friends the most. The snow lion rumbled what I was beginning to recognize as its version of laughter. Over the next several hours we watched as the combined fleets systematically processed the capture of the Crimson Fleet. The pirates were transferred to secure vessels, their ships were impounded and statements were taken from all parties involved. Through it all, Marcus seemed more interested in playing with Zephyra and her new snow lion companion than in claiming credit for what he had accomplished. You realize, I told him as we watched the last of the pirate vessels being towed away, that you have just dismantled one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in this sector of space. Did I? I thought I just called for help when bullies were picking on my friends. It amounts to the same thing. Maybe, but the way you think about it matters. If I had tried to destroy the Crimson Fleet by myself, I would have failed. But if I just asked for help protecting the people I care about, well, that is something anyone can do. Dr. Helios approached us, carrying a data pad with Marcus's final medical readings. Your injuries have healed remarkably quickly, she reported. I am clearing you for full activity, though I recommend avoiding fights with apex predators for at least a week. I will try to restrain myself, Marcus said solemnly. The snow lion snorted, a sound that somehow conveyed skepticism about Marcus's ability to avoid trouble. What will you do now? I asked. Your transport was destroyed and your original mission. My original mission was to investigate reports of Crimson Fleet activity in this sector, Marcus replied. I would say that mission is complete, but how will you get home? Admiral Korath has offered me passage to the nearest Alliance outpost. From there, I can catch a transport to wherever they need me next. Zephyra looked sad suddenly. You are leaving? Marcus knelt down to her level. I have to, little one. There are other people out there who need help, and other bullies who need to be reminded about the difference between right and wrong. Will we see you again? Maybe. The galaxy is big, but it is also smaller than you might think. People who care about each other have a way of finding each other again. The snow lion moved closer to Marcus and rubbed its massive head against his shoulder. For a moment I thought the great cat was saying goodbye, but then I realized what was actually happening. He wants to go with you. I said, what? The snow lion. He has bonded with you. In the wild, snow lions mate for life and form permanent pack bonds. He considers you part of his pack now. Marcus looked at the snow lion, then at me. I cannot take him. My work is too dangerous, and he belongs here in his natural environment. The snow lion made a sound that was unmistakably a protest. Then it did something that made my understanding of animal behavior collapse entirely. It moved to the nearest control panel and placed its paw on the communications button. Did he just? Dr. Helios began. He activated the comms system, I confirmed. Somehow he knows what that panel does. A series of sounds emerged from the snow lion that were clearly intentional communication. Not words, but definitely meaningful vocalizations directed at Marcus. He is telling you that home is not a place, Zephyra translated with the certainty that only children possess. Home is being with family. Marcus stared at the snow lion for a long moment. You really want to come with me? Even though it means leaving everything you know? The snow lion's response was to pick up Marcus's dropped equipment pack in its teeth and drop it at his feet. I think that is a yes, I said. Admiral Korath, Marcus called through the comm, slight change of plans. I am going to need passage for 2. Understood, Marcus Stone. We can accommodate any companions you require. As preparations were made for Marcus's departure, I found myself reflecting on everything I had witnessed. In the span less than a day, I had seen a human survive impossible odds, defeat overwhelming enemies, forge alliances with apex predators, and unite complete strangers in the cause of justice. But more than that, I had seen something that our tactical manuals and scientific studies had never captured about humanity. They did not just refuse to accept the impossible. They redefined what was possible by the simple act of caring about others. Pa, Zephyra said, tugging at my arm one final time, when I grow up I want to be like Marcus. Like a human? No, Papa. Like someone who makes impossible things happen by being kind. I watched as Marcus said his final goodbyes. The snow lion standing patiently beside him, ready for whatever adventure came next. As they boarded the Admiral's transport, Marcus turned back to wave at us. Thank you, he called out, for everything. Thank you, I replied, for reminding us what courage looks like. The transport sealed its doors and pulled away from our ship. Through the viewports I could see Marcus and the snow lion standing together at an observation window, already planning their next impossible adventure. Will we really see them again, Papa? Zephyra asked. I thought about Marcus's parting words, about the way the galaxy seemed to arrange itself around human kindness, and about the fact that anyone who made friends with snow lions probably did not live a quiet, predictable life. Yes, I said with certainty. Somehow I am sure we will. As we watched the transport disappear into the starfield, carrying a human and his unlikely companion toward whatever impossible thing they would do next, I found myself smiling. After all, in a universe full of wonders and terrors, it was good to know that somewhere out there beings existed who looked at the impossible and said, "Not today." And sometimes, if you were very lucky, They said it while standing next to a 600-pound snow lion who had learned that the best adventures always began with making friends with someone who seemed like an enemy. The galaxy, I realized, was a much more interesting place with humans in it, even when they made absolutely no sense at all, especially then.